Hi, loves. Today we're going to be talking again about the Rebel Wilson legal drama because, wow, do I have some more information that is absolutely wild. And I couldn't believe that I got some of the information. I even got to listen to some Zoom calls with all of these producers fighting with each other. And it is the wildest legal case already, and I have spent the week reading through all the text messages, emails, the budget, everything about this movie and the legal situation. And it is absolutely unhinged with Rebel Wilson firmly at the center that I can't believe some of the things that were going on this set and that she was doing and also her partner was doing, which is just so bizarre because her partner wasn't involved in this movie at all. They're now married and it's her wife, but this all happened in 2023 when they were dating, like not that long. So we will get into all of this. I'm primarily going to talk about the Charlotte McInnes versus Rebel Wilson legal case because it actually concluded yesterday, May 8th, Friday, May 8th. I was up at 4 a.m. watching the live stream of the court because you have to watch it live. Like you can't post it after, I can't put clips in, you can't record it, and it even disappears from your watch history. Like you can't even see it anywhere else. So I did watch the closing arguments yesterday, and the quotes that were used by a lot of the outlets was Rebel Wilson accused of being a fantastical liar. I do have on my main channel a full Rebel Wilson deep dive with all of the kind of background details of this. You don't necessarily have to have watched that, but if you want like all of the background and background on Rebel Wilson too, I'll link that down below. And I did do an update on this channel last week as well. I'm planning on doing a big deep dive on everything, like all the other legal cases, because Rebel is facing multiple legal cases with this movie and her actions on social media and what she's done. So I am going to do a full update on the main channel after I post my new video over there today. So look out for that one coming soon because it's so much information that it's too much for one video. But there's still going to be lots of good stuff in this one because I just have to talk about it because it's that unhinged. Like, I've been so excited to do this video and talk about it. But to give you the briefest of brief summaries, Rebel Wilson worked on her directorial debut, a movie called The Deb, and there was other producers involved with this. The main two that you need to know about are Gregor Cameron and Amanda Ghost, and they are married, and Amanda Ghost was the lead producer and also primarily doing all of the music and stuff because The Deb is a musical. It was originally a play and then it's being made into a movie, and it starred a woman named Charlotte McInnes, who is the case that we're talking about. And Charlotte McInnes has sued Rebel Wilson for defamation for all of her actions over the last few years with blasting Charlotte on social media. And this was Charlotte's like first lead role. Like, she's in her mid 20s. This was like a big thing. I really do feel for her because either way you look at it, Charlotte McInnes has been screwed. But there's just one more little bit of background that you need to know before we get into all of the unhingedness, because there very much is an inciting incident where a lot of this unhinged story starts from, and it's a very different story on Rebel side and on the side of Charlotte McInnes, Amanda Ghost, the other producers, and everybody else nearly involved with the production. So, in pre-production of this movie, Charlotte McInnes and Amanda Ghost, they end up going swimming on Bondi Beach. Another woman is there, Priya Ashcroft, who is the head of music in Amanda Ghost's company. So the three women go swimming, and when in the water and then when getting out, Amanda Ghost has an extreme reaction to the temperature and she starts shaking uncontrollably and can't speak. And so they go back to the apartment that Amanda's staying in that's right by where they are, and they end up calling Amanda Ghost's doctor. And a lot of the information here is going to be based on the actual affidavit that I've read from her doctor. Amanda also has a condition that's quite rare called Samter's triad, which is basically like an overreaction of the immune system. So that also was a much better idea to call her doctor rather than just go to the hospital, because her doctor is going to have like all of her past medical history as well. And the doctor actually advises them, you don't need to go to the hospital. Like, you can treat her and I'll tell you what to do. There are a lot more details in the documents that I've been able to read that just give so much more information on what's gone on, not just in this little part of the case, but in all aspects. And that's why I wanted to do this update and why I want to do the full breakdown, massive update on my main channel, because I've seen so many people talking about this and saying things like, oh, Amanda Ghost must have just been cold, and if it really was serious, they would have gone to hospital. But they called her own doctor who knew her history and was advising them, because she did start to also break out in these big red welts, and that's when they did become concerned. They're following her doctor's advice, who knows her much better than just going to a random emergency room, especially because it's not necessary and they were able to treat her at home. And that's one less patient the overburdened emergency services don't need to treat as well. So they do follow the doctor's advice, and the doctor tells them, okay, do this, do that. And Charlotte jumps into action. She's like, I know what to do. Priya goes and makes some hot drinks, and Charlotte and Amanda, both in their swimwear, Charlotte turns the hot shower on, puts Amanda in. It doesn't quite warm up. I mean, you know yourself, with a bath or a shower, like, usually people get in a bath after cold water thing, but they're both in their swimwear and she's trying to help her. So I can see why, like, it'd probably be easier to try a shower. And then she ends up filling up the bath. Amanda Ghost gets in. Charlotte gets in because they're both in swimwear, freezing cold from the water. And they both sit in the bath of a penthouse, which, that's, this wall is on the other side is my bathroom, right? That's it. It's tiny. It's a little stand shower one. But this is a penthouse bath. I'll put a picture from the actual penthouse in so you can see. And Priya Ashcroft is there the whole time too, and brings Charlotte a hot chocolate and Amanda a chamomile tea, and they sit there, warm up, chat. That's it. The next day, they go to the set. Rebel Wilson gets wind of this, and she calls Charlotte to kind of see what happened. Like, is everything okay? It sounds kind of odd. And so Charlotte, I'm going to quote from an email from Charlotte's agent here. Charlotte was chatting to Rebel and Amanda the following day, and Rebel said words to the effect, I heard Amanda had a moment last night. Amanda said something to the effect of, can you imagine if she wasn't there? Charlotte responded, oh yeah, it was a weird one, or something similar, to keep the conversation light and not put herself in the center of Amanda's experience. And then there are multiple times that Charlotte McInnes has said, I did not feel uncomfortable. It was a weird situation, because if you explained it to someone like, oh, the lead actress and the producer of the movie are in the bath together, but you leave out all of that context and like them being in their swimwear, her having anaphylaxis, like, it is just a weird thing. But she says multiple times, at no point did I feel uncomfortable. Additionally, if you look at the emails and texts and like all the communication from this time at the end of 2023, early 2024, when Rebel Wilson is relaying this story to people or just mentioning it and going into details, the way that she describes the story then to how she describes it now, and what both sides in court agreed were the facts, things that she said on the stand. And in my opinion, even when you see her relaying like the most simple or basic bits of information about the story, they're always exaggerated or fabricated or just dressed up, even from what we can see, like, has been agreed upon and she testified to in court. So for example, when she relays the story to people, she'll say things like, oh yeah, the producer was making the actress that was the lead take baths and showers with her, making it seem like this happened multiple times when it wasn't just this one thing. And even saying it like that, as I said, it's taking out so much context. And when you're looking back at that communication from now, with all this additional context and knowing so much more information, it again is another point that screams, this is not someone who is telling the truth, in my opinion. And I'm so sorry I have to keep saying allegedly and in my opinion so much, but I'm just playing it extremely safe because I'm just making my little YouTube videos with my cat, and everybody involved with this, especially the main person who maybe isn't coming off the best, is extremely rich, extremely famous, and extremely litigious. So I hope that that's okay, and really sorry, but just playing it safe. And also, 2 days later, they went to the gym and went swimming again. 2 days later, as well, Charlotte McInnes was actually kicked out of her where she was staying for the film so that Rebel Wilson's partner could go in there because apparently had some like great view because Charlotte was the lead actress. And there's a lot of interference from Rebel Wilson's at the time girlfriend, in my opinion, because there's all of these other like add-ons that Rebel got, like her legal fees being paid, even though she was making almost 2 million out of the budget of this $15 million movie. So she was making like a seventh of the budget. If the movie makes a profit, Rebel and the producers split it 50-50. Rebel is taking none of the risk. Like, it's the other producers that are putting the money in. And she's also, in my opinion, created all of the issues for them. So I cannot imagine what they are going through, and the trial with Amanda Ghost and Rebel Wilson is going to be absolutely insane because there's so much more there. So after this happens, I do just want to add in some other things that were going on at the time that I have found through reading all of every single bit of legal document I could. And I read all the texts between Charlotte and Amanda that go over a long period of time. And my interpretation of them is that Charlotte McInnes very much admired Amanda Ghost and saw her as someone who was very successful in the music industry. She used to be head of Epic Records. And there's criticism towards Amanda Ghost for decisions that she's done. I know there's stuff with Sarah Bareilles and things, but we're just talking about the legal stuff today. And all of the text messages between them, there's not one message that I looked at and was like, that's kind of weird, or oh, that I would be uncomfortable if someone in an authoritative position to me sent me that. Like, I was actually surprised how work and like music focused they were. Like, at no point are, I would say, they're even like super friendly. Like, I saw those messages absolutely as the messages that I have had between people that are in their 20s, as I see as quite younger, but that are asking me for advice, or there's a few people that I've mentored before that are in like their mid to late 20s, and I'm in my clinging into my late 30s. And I speak to them very differently than I would to someone who I might be giving advice to that's 35, because they are so much younger and there is that power dynamic. Like, I'm some small silly YouTuber that talks about Hollywood stuff. Like, Amanda Ghost is a very accomplished award-winning producer. Like, of course, it seemed to me she was very aware of the line. And all of the messages are, I know that they did go to performances together and stuff, but it's all Charlotte sending her like a video of her singing and Amanda being like, oh, try this, or like, oh, why don't you try singing this song and stuff. There's even been accusations from Rebel Wilson that Charlotte changed her story and Amanda then gave her a record deal and gave her a part in Gatsby. Again, reading all of this stuff, it's not just their messages. Like, there's so much other evidence that that just isn't true. Like, even on, I listened to the Zoom call between Amanda Ghost, Charles Collier, who's Rebel Wilson's UK agent, and Gregor Cameron, and another woman that's involved with the production, Angela Wood, I think her name is. And in that call from the end of 2023, Amanda says, oh, we're actually signing Charlotte to a record deal. And about the Gatsby part, you see Amanda saying, oh, there's a lot of big stars auditioning for this. There's a lot of like very accomplished Broadway people. She's saying it in a way of, this will be great experience for you and you'll get to meet people and like see the whole audition process for this. And Charlotte did end up getting the part. And Rebel has used that very against her. When Rebel Wilson did this terrible 60-minute interview that I talked about in my original video that makes her, in my opinion, look so guilty that she says, oh, she got this part given to her because she changed her story and she was actually harassed, but now she's saying she wasn't. And I mean, it just doesn't come across that way through any of the documentation that I've seen anyway. And this whole thing with the harassment, Rebel claims that Charlotte came to her and says she was harassed and that she felt very uncomfortable. And Rebel then takes it upon herself to say and put in a complaint and say that Charlotte was sexually harassed by Amanda Ghost, and it turns into the biggest thing through the whole production. Rebel says that she doesn't want Amanda on set, and it just blows up into a huge, huge thing. There's some other things going on at the time, too. One is Rebel has been denied a writer's credit on the movie. She is given additional writing by credit. The woman who wrote the movie, Hannah Riley, has also done an affidavit for Charlotte's case that I read, and Rebel does not come off good in that affidavit either. The reason Rebel was denied a writing credit was the Australian Writers Guild determined that. Rebel holds that against the producers, in my opinion, and it was such a focus for her in all the emails that I read early on. She's like, I want this writing credit. I want this writing credit. And a lot of the beginning when Rebel's texting Charlotte and things, she is so rude to Charlotte. And there's a point where they're away somewhere and Charlotte and Amanda end up going to dinner, and Rebel had said to Charlotte, oh, I have an extra ticket for this show. But Charlotte, they're away. She was like relying on Wi-Fi for her phone. She didn't have data. So she says, oh, I didn't see the message. I'm really sorry, like blah, blah, blah. And Rebel goes back to her and this message that's like biting her head off and saying, it's extremely rude and like da da da. And there's all these other messages at different points to different people where Rebel is very, very like cutthroat and rude and just biting people's heads off constantly. If I got any of those messages, I would find it very inappropriate and rude. And if it was someone who was in like a position above me, like a producer or director, I would feel really, really uncomfortable. And mostly because of like anxiety, I'd be like, oh my God, they hate me, they want to kill me. But it's everything about this case, like everything I've read, I've had a lot of information before, but an amazing group of people who know who they are sent me the audio call, like access to a lot of this stuff. And I've spent the week reading it. And before, when I did my original video and the update last week, I was pretty convinced that it was Rebel Wilson in the wrong. But reading all of this stuff, I have become even more sure of it. I could absolutely be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. But to me, there is just no scenario where what Rebel Wilson has done is appropriate, because look at the Charlotte McInnes situation and then we'll look at the Amanda Ghost one, because there's other stuff that I have to add there too. Charlotte McInnes, there's one of two things that's happened. This is what both sides say. Charlotte says they had this weird situation. She wasn't uncomfortable. She is trying to learn from Amanda. Rebel has made these claims and there's no issue. If that's true, Rebel has gone on social media, blasted the shit out of her, and she's a new actress in her like debut, and this Hollywood star with 11 million followers is blasting the hell out of her. Rebel also went on not only her own Instagram, the movie's Instagram, the movie that Charlotte is the lead in, and wrote all this horrible stuff about her, and even was saying things like she's dressing in a culturally inappropriate way. And even the store where she got the dress from came out and was like, no, she's not. Everybody is on the opposite side to Rebel Wilson, like even the store where they're buying dresses from. And the other side of this, so either Charlotte's side is completely true, Rebel's made this up out of nowhere. And I will also say there's a lot of other emails and texts and even just listening on the audio calls. There's so much information of Rebel, in my opinion, trying to turn other people against each other. I think that she had an issue with Charlotte looking up to Amanda because of these things where Charlotte has chosen to go to dinner with Amanda or whatever. And it seems like Rebel has an issue with that because there's also times where Rebel has said, "Oh, I walked in on Charlotte in the studio talking badly about you." And then she's also said stuff to Charlotte about, "Oh, Amanda thinks this about you." And then there's also other people that she's said, "Oh, this person doesn't like you," or this. And then Rebel's now wife, but at the time girlfriend, is also getting involved with making accusations against people. Rebel's wife called the billionaire who is funding a lot of this movie and claimed to him that the other producers, Amanda Ghost and her husband Gregor Cameron, were stealing from him, and that there was all these other allegations, not just Charlotte's, against Amanda. Rebel claims that this call took place because her girlfriend at the time is really good friends with Len Blavatnik, who's the billionaire. Those are the exact words used, and that it was a casual call because they're really good friends and they talk all the time and they talk in Russian. And, it was just this catch up among friends that she mentioned that these producers might be stealing from him. And as I mentioned, there's that audio call between Charles Collier, Rebel Wilson's UK agent, Amanda Ghost, Gregor Cameron, and another person that's involved with the film. And in it, Amanda Ghost says, "I was with Len Blavatnik all last night and yesterday day, and he's asked us to have the Zoom call because he does not know Rebel Wilson's girlfriend. He's spoken to her once, that call. He doesn't know her." So to me, there's just so many things that seem completely fabricated and made up out of nowhere. And probably the chief among things made up is the smear websites, which I did talk about in both videos, but there's a little bit more of information that I wanted to add in. So all of this blows up at the end of September, and then early 2024, Rebel's blasting this stuff out on social media. And she doesn't just blast Charlotte, obviously, she's blasting Amanda Ghost and Gregor Cameron, and claims all the things that we talked about: stealing from the movie, sexually harassing the lead actress, and making all these other insinuations and making it seem like, oh, she might be doing something inappropriate with other people. Like, no clear cut, actually, this is what is being claimed. In the rant video she releases on Instagram, she also accuses the producers and naming them of embezzlement and also holding her hostage in a room to sign contracts, when if you look at the communication, it's actually her refusing to sign contracts. And my interpretation of what she says to her UK agent Charles Collier is, let's hold these contract signing pages ransom because they can't move forward without signing them until they insert this clause into Amanda Ghost's producer contract, which is basically a behavior clause. And in my opinion, allegedly, just my opinion, it looks like they're trying to set a trap for Amanda Ghost, because the producer clause is saying things about, behaving a certain way and not bringing like disrepute on the movie, because it really does seem like the way that she talks about this clause and also how she talks to Charles, that they're saying, let's put this clause in and it will be triggered by the stuff with Charlotte. And there are also multiple points where she really just comes across as someone who is very self-centered and greedy, but also not happy unless everybody else is getting like the absolute bare minimum. And she just seems really set on like turning other people against other people and like making other people really unhappy and taking from other people. Like, she's not even satisfied with how much she's getting, because there's email after email over weeks and weeks where she is really going after the other producers, getting this 300k fee, which they are getting 300k each. She's getting 900k, and she's getting almost 2 million from this movie again. And she just keeps focusing on it, even though her UK agent says to her, you are getting, and he says it in a nice way, obviously, but you are benefiting so much from this movie. You're not taking any risk. These people aren't trying to screw you over. Like, they're being really fair. Like, they're giving you so much benefit. And even on this small production, all that money that she's making, she's also getting first class flights for her wife, and her kid, first class accommodation, all their transportation, private cars, paying for assistance, paying for local assistance, even giving them $70 per DM per day, even though they have Crafty on set and they're in a hotel with room service. But she doesn't think that's good enough either, because she will also talk about how she's incurring all these expenses by being out there, when actually the movie is incurring expenses because she is adamant about filming where they film, because at one point they even lose some financing for the movie, which I believe is later picked up by the Australian government. So Australian citizens, your tax dollars at work. But they then look at saying like, oh, maybe we should film somewhere cheaper in Australia, and she's like, no, like I need to be here. And her mom even was on set when like the 60 Minutes crew came to film. And so when that happens, they end up staying there. And then she says, I'm incurring, all these extra costs. And what she says the extra costs are in this order is nanny and baby. Yeah, you have to pay for your own baby, shockingly. To me, that reads as, I literally cannot find anything else to complain about, so I'm going to complain that the movie isn't paying for my nanny and my baby. So that is all ongoing. Rebel continues putting stuff out all constantly on social media for the past 2 years. Even before the trial started, like just before the trial started, she started putting stuff out on there too. And they end up getting these smear websites get put up about Amanda Ghost at just after this time period in like the summer of 2024. And all the websites are things like amandaghostsucks.com, amandaghost.com, and they all talk about Amanda Ghost being the Indian Ghislaine Maxwell and how she's procuring women for the billionaire Len Blavatnik, accuses her of all these other things. There's Twitter accounts and all these other social media things just going really hard against her. And through the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case, the same group that Baldoni hired, TAG, Melissa Nathan's PR group, in Discovery, all of this stuff comes out, messages allegedly between Melissa Nathan and her company and Rebel Wilson. And in the text messages from Melissa Nathan to one of her employees, she says Rebel wants one of those sites. It can be really nasty. And they talk about the sites that then end up being made about Amanda Ghost. And like it's all in these text messages. And there's a document that they work off for these sites that's all the information about Amanda Ghost. And the author of the document is Camp Sugar, which is Rebel Wilson's production company. Something else that I noticed when I was reading all of this stuff and came up in the closing when I was watching it yesterday is the fact that this document, Rebel claims she knows nothing about this website, that she had nothing to do with it. She even went on 60 Minutes Australia, where if you haven't seen the interview, I will leave a link below. I show clips in my original video. The interviewer is amazing in it, and Rebel Wilson looks like such a fucking idiot. But she says, I know nothing about this website. I don't even know how to make a website. And they also go into like the whole, did you hire them? Like, she says no, she knows nothing about it. And there is literally texts where they say Rebel wants this site. And then there is a contract that I have that is between Rebel Wilson's lawyer and TAG for $25,000 a month. And there's even other messages where Melissa Nathan and TAG are saying that they're trying to pull down all these negative articles about Rebel. And I've been following this case like an absolute psycho because I became so interested in it, did the video, but I knew I was still going to cover it. So I'm constantly like pulling up documents, reading things, and I will look like probably every other day, just out of interest, Google Rebel Wilson to see what new kind of bullshit's being put out, because she must be spending a fortune on PR right now. Because if you looked at her Google results, even me, who is obsessively following this, Googling her name a week ago, you wouldn't know this trial's going on. Like, all that comes up is articles about her weight loss and about her wife and them getting married and going to Disney and Ozempic and all this other stuff. And the articles are being pushed out by the day. There's even articles that talk about her defamation case from nearly 10 years ago that are authored one day ago because guess what? They're trying to put out Rebel Wilson defamation and pull people towards that rather than what's actually going on. I do think the dam has kind of burst now because when the closing of the arguments was going on yesterday, I was looking up what are people saying and stuff. And The Guardian, the BBC, the Independent, the Morning Sydney Herald, like all of these have been putting out articles about it now. So I don't think that she can really keep a hold on it anymore. But up until yesterday, there really was like all this week, I saw a lot of articles that, in my opinion, will have been orchestrated by her and her side because they didn't mention anything about Rebel Wilson. And they had headlines like Charlotte McInnes fudging story. And not the way the headline was, like you would think that she'd been found dead to rights fudging her story, but it was just Rebel Wilson's lawyer and a woman named Greer Simpkin who worked on the movie saying Rebel thinks she's fudged her story. So the other thing that I noticed, so I got a bit sidetracked there talking about the court case, but the other thing that I noticed on this Camp Sugar document is the fact that only someone who was in Australia could have authored this document. Is it possible to change metadata? Yes. Is it extremely, extremely difficult that not like the average person could do? Yes. Because Rebel side are claiming someone else could have changed it to say Camp Sugar and someone else could change the metadata. But someone in Australia has to have authored this document. My interpretation would be it was Camp Sugar because why would they change the metadata to send it to like the PR company if and not even knowing that this trial is coming like it makes no sense. And the reason that I say someone in Australia had to have authored the document is because the way that the time is, they send it to Tag in LA, but it's actually like the document is coming from the future because Australia, a lot of Australia is like 20 hours ahead of LA. And guess who, in my opinion, called the paparazzi on herself when she arrived in Australia in a yellow tracksuit and was photographed? So we know that she was in Australia, Rebel Wilson. There is so much more I want to say about this case, but I'm going to give you some predictions for what I think is going to happen with the Charlotte McInnes case. I do think that it isn't as cut and dry because obviously a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, like the smear campaigns and all that stuff, like that doesn't really enter into Charlotte McInnes's side because she's saying Rebel Wilson defamed me. And the Australian court system, like it's really not the definition that you would think of because it's not as cut and dry as you would think it is. You know, it is all legalese and like these specific definitions that don't really mean what like the average person would think they mean. So I don't think that it's like an absolute slam dunk, but I want to think that they will side with Charlotte. And I do think it's terrible either way, everything she's had to go through because either her whole side is right. And of course, like everyone, there's always three sides to every story, and there's probably bits and pieces that, you know, aren't exactly this or exactly that. But if in large part Charlotte's side is true, and this is everything that's happened, that is horrendous that through no fault of her own, and this is supposed to be like her big moment, which it seems like is similar, not quite the same, but it seems like Hannah Riley, the writer of the movie, has been screwed as well by Rebel Wilson's behavior. This was supposed to be her big movie, like, you know, writing her first movie. Like, that's such a huge thing and a massive accomplishment for both of them. And Rebel Wilson has like screwed both of them. And she tried to be really nasty to Hannah Riley when they wouldn't give her the writing by credit. And there's so much other stuff that I will talk about in the other video. But if that isn't true, like if Rebel Wilson's side is true, then she has blasted and sent 11 million people and others and damaged the reputation of someone that she claims was sexually harassed. So, either way you look at this, to me, Rebel Wilson comes off looking terrible, even if she is in the right. I do think it's going to be a while until we find out about the judge's decision because I looked up like a lot of other cases and this does have like a lot of evidence and things. So, it seems like it will take like a few months. So, when there is a resolve, absolutely, like I will be here. But in the meantime, as I said, I'm going to do a full big update on everything that I've found in these documents because oh my God, is it a treasure trove? And again, thank you so much to the group that helped me get some of this. They know who they are. A lot of the stuff that we'll go over on the main channel video is going to be really, really relevant for the Amanda Ghost Rebel Wilson case and the whole smear campaign and everything and the case with the finances because Rebel's being sued for multiple things on multiple continents. But there also just is so much great information that is just fascinating and I think people will be really really interested in it. So it's just lots of little details too that I know will not be covered in the mainstream media and things and like the text messages and all that. So I'm going to get clarification on trying to like show texts and maybe the audio and stuff, but I'm not sure whether it's allowed with the audio, but I will absolutely try my best. And everything with the next video, even if I can, I'll be able to link everything and put it in like a drive. So if you want to see that video, I'll have it posted on my main channel very, very soon. You won't be able to stop me because I just can't stop talking about this case. And you guys are the only people who are interested other than Miss G. People in my life are like, uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Rebel Wilson. She's talking about Rebel Wilson again. So we'll be back soon to talk more. And if you want to see the original Rebel Wilson deep dive with this stuff, then I'll have that link below too on my original channel and the update from last week that's on this channel as well. Thank you so, so much. If you made it to the end of this, oh, you're MVP of MVPs. Leave MVP in the comments to let me know that you did make it to the end so I can thank you for watching because this was a lot of information and I know these videos are a lot more casual so it is like just a kind of dump of listen to all this crazy information. So thank you again and I just appreciate it so much. People who watch this channel and make it to the end, honestly, I really, really do. I'll leave link down below G's merch store, her social media, my social media, Patreon, the sources, all of that stuff. Thank you so much again for watching. And as always, make sure to stay safe, take care of yourselves, and G and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.